Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for this segment, we have Ryan McCormack, Factor and Core Equity Strategist at Invesco, to discuss weekly performance in the Nasdaq-100. We're also going to take a look at the latest inflation data. Ryan, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and let's get a recap on what stuck out to you in the past week in the Nasdaq QQQs.
Thanks, Jill, and great to be back. We saw another week of outperformance from the Nasdaq-100 index. We saw QQQ and QQQM up 4.77%. That compares to the S&P 500 up 2.62% and S&P 500 value up 1.79%. Really driven by some solid economic news on prices, along with some renewed interest in the AI space ahead of earnings. I think both of those things helped to propel growth stocks higher, and as such, we saw outperformance in Nasdaq 100.
And let's take a look at the latest inflation data with CPI and PPI. We see that it's starting to come in a bit, which is good. However, the Fed is laser focused on that core number, and at 4.8%, it's still pretty far from their 2% target.
Yeah, I think last week when we spoke, June CPI had been released, and both the headline and core reading came in better than expected on a month-over-month and a year-over-year basis. But to your point, right, we've seen kind of core readings remain a little bit stickier than the headline. And Thursday brought a very similar result with June producer prices. So we saw both the headline and the core readings come in better than economists' expectations on both a month-over-month and year-over-year basis. Headline PPI saw a year-over-year increase of only 0.1%. So we're nearly at a deflationary level there, and much better than the 0.4% expected by economists. That 0.1% is the lowest figure that we've seen in the reading since August 2020. The core PPI, of course, core being excluding food and energy, increased by 2.4% year over year. Smallest increase since 2021, better than expectations, but again, a little bit stickier, right? And you can see in the chart, it's just been, it hasn't come down nearly as sharply as the headline. But, overall, I think from a street perspective, we're seeing optimism on this continued fight against inflation. Fed funds futures are still overwhelmingly predicting another hike at the July meeting. And now you're starting to see, a potential for a hike maybe in September or beyond. But still not quite the two hikes this year that the Fed has been forecasting. I think the street has been more in the one more hike camp.
And if we take a look at sectors, where can the performance be attributed to?
So all but one sector in QQQ ended the week in positive territory. Utilities was the only sector to finish in the red. Tech led the way higher on an absolute performance as well as relative contributor. It was up 5.86% for the week. And all sectors contributed to relative positive performance against SPY. So just a really good week all around. NVIDIA continued its climb. It advanced by 12% over the last week. It was the largest single contributor to relative performance against SPY. I think on the back of optimism around the slowing inflation, along with reports that it's going to be an anchor investor in the upcoming ARM IPO. Chip design spinoff from a company from SoftBank. They had tried to acquire it, but had to abandon the bid, basically because of regulators. Not far behind, Microsoft, that advanced by over 8%. The company announced its pricing plan for Copilot, which is its AI subscription add-on service to its Office suite. Added $30 a month. Early forecasts are over 80% increases in monthly prices for enterprise customers. So I think there was a lot of optimism there. And then lastly, Tesla was the third largest contributor to performance, up by nearly 9% for the week. Tesla's scheduled to report Q2 earnings tonight after the close. Kicks off a pretty robust 2 weeks of earnings announcements from some of the largest companies in the Nasdaq 100, including Microsoft on the 25th, Meta on the 26th, Alphabet on the 25th, Amazon on the 27th, and Apple tentatively scheduled for August 3rd.
All right, Ryan, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.